Is Ukraine back on the offensive near Verbova? And are they here to stay on the southern bank of the Dnieper? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's October 20th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first taking a look at the control map. We're just going to work our way from west to east here. The first notable change, you can see for the first time in quite a while, we've seen actually an expanded area of the contested zone at the Dnieper. That you can see reports are that the Ukrainian approximately 2 company-sized elements are actually fighting in and around the villages of Bridgehead and Poema, but there's some reports that these forces may have been pushed back a bit by Russian counterattacks, but most critically, the fact that they're even trying to dig in and hold these positions show this isn't a raid, that this is actually attempting to seize territory from the Russians crossing the Dnieper. Obviously, the biggest, most difficult challenge is to keep supplies coming in to these troops over this river here, where without a pontoon bridge or even a really robust ferry system, it's going to be very difficult to maintain fighting supplies at scale. Because remember, this isn't going to be an operation that can be just won by one company of a few hundred light infantry. It's going to take a battalion or brigade if you want to see this turn into a proper breakthrough. And that means a lot of logistics are going to have to pass in and around this bridge area. Then we move to the west, over to Verbova, where Ukrainian forces have also seen a not terribly significant, but noteworthy drive as they push Russian forces, particularly some of the 247th Guards Air Assault Regiment. You can see them getting pushed back here just along this windbreak. Again, we know that the Russian forces are operating with significant fortifications here. You can see some of the fortification networks highlighted in yellow on the map here. And you can see that pushing Russian forces out past some of their areas of the Surovikin line are important. This isn't that close to that. It looks more like this is part of Ukraine's efforts to expand, make this salient a little wider instead of necessarily going deeper as we saw earlier in the counteroffensive. And so I think that's what we're seeing here. The only other 2 noteworthy items are outside of Pisky. Let's see if I can find it here. Or sorry, Priutine, where you see Russian forces making a few yards of advance, securing along this canal here. Obviously, crossing these water obstacles into Priutine, probably not a Ukrainian priority. But you can see Russia, again, likely easily able to hold along this line, but moving past it is going to be much more difficult, as you can see just from the terrain. Much less cover, much more open, much harder to conduct these advances. As we've seen, Russian advances have really struggled of late. Looking in Avdiivka, you can also see 2 minor advances near Krasnohorivka. Again, this is in at least the broad direction that Ukrainian or Russian forces want to push. While this northern front doesn't actually change, it just indicates a deeper contested zone, likely part of a Russian offensive action. You can see Russian forces advancing, what looks like about 100 meters here along this southern prong. So if you look at some of the footage on here, for this 100 meters, it appears that Russia is expending a huge, eye-watering number of armored vehicles, and it still remains questionable whether Russia can actually sustain this. Certainly for gains of, again, look at the scale here, about down at, you can't quite see it, but let me draw this out here with the ruler. We're going from about here to about here, I'd say. So we're looking at a distance right there is 100 meters. So yeah, you can see we're looking at about 100 meters of advance. Almost a comically small advance here. And other than that, the last one, as we talked about, they label this as Diachi. So those are all the changes to the front lines, primarily in Ukraine's favor, I'd say. Looking over at the combat map, we can see Russian forces continuing their offensive action in Avdiivka, again, as we saw, trying to advance this northern prong of their encirclement effort. But Ukraine ominously and strangely silent on the operations in the Dnipro, probably for operational security reasons. They don't want to disclose what exactly is going on over here. Of course, guys, if you're interested in supporting me and supporting Ukraine, you guys know the story. When I was in Afghanistan, I relied on energy drinks for my caffeine, right? Just big cans of gross, sugary, they called them Rippets. So now that I have a little bit of influence, I reached out to a manufacturer in Denver and we created a formulation for what I call Strike Gum. Strike Gum is the world's best premier energy gum with 90 milligrams of caffeine in every piece. That's as much as most energy drinks, plus 100 milligrams of alpha GPC, and with no sugar and just 5 calories in every piece. It is the low and no sugar. It is the no sugar alternative to high calorie energy drinks. So if you're interested, you can check us out at strikegum.com. Remember, every pack you purchase, 50% of the profits, at least from this first production run, are going to support Ukrainian charities that support Ukrainian refugees who have been injured or displaced in this conflict. So check us out, strikegum.com. Now, Russian sources are apparently confirming that these Ukrainian ground operations on the east bank of the Dnieper, and it sounds like, again, one of those things where Russian sources are trying to frame it as a victory, that Ukrainian forces were pushed back, but it means that Ukrainian forces are still holding on in that other part of the bridge. It reminds me of the old joke from World War II that Russian citizens could tell that the Soviet army was being defeated because the Soviet army's stunning victories were being reported ever more westward. And so that's probably what we're seeing here. The Russian forces achieving stunning victories against the Ukrainians, but constantly deeper into Russian-occupied Ukraine. So it would be very interesting to see how this actually plays out, if this does end up being a raid, or if Ukraine proves able to build out the sustainment systems to reinforce and push into this attack. Of course, you see also 2 days ago, Ukrainian attackums launching a Luhansk city airfield attack on several helicopters. Probably, I suspect that that Russia's going to figure out some way to mitigate the attackums' risk, but the Russian military moves very slowly, and it seems like Ukraine has a lot of good intel on where to hit. As discussed, taking out several helicopters at Luhansk, following on the heels of the strike on Berdyansk airfield the day prior. So there's also claims that those helicopters that do get off the ground, or sorry, fixed-wing aircraft, those are like fighters and multi-role aircraft, that there have been 5 downed in the past 10 days in and around Donetsk, right, for Russian losses near Avdiivka. Just a reminder that air superiority is not anybody's at this point. And taking this level of losses, again, bear in mind, for what yesterday was 100 meters of territory is simply unsustainable for the Russians. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Colonel tier members of CombatVetNews.com. Thank you to our Lieutenant tier members and all the members of CombatVetNews.com. I really couldn't do this without you guys. Your support enables me and the team to stay independent, do this research, and bring this to you every single day. Thank you so much. Hit subscribe and like. See you in the next one.